Hi guys, it's Hillary. Welcome back to my channel, Enneagram and Coaching. I'm your certified Enneagram life coach, and today we are going to be going over the subtypes of the type 4, the individualist. But first, I have my coffee, I have my breakfast. I may or may not be snacking on this during the video, and nobody told my kids that I just took the last donut. That's gonna be our little secret. By the end of this video, you guys should know your dominant instinct, which is gonna be called your subtype. So that's what this video is gonna be about today. But before we get started, don't forget to push that subscribe button. We are 3 videos into the subtype series. I've covered the 9, the 8, and now the 4. I'm not going in order. And if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I hope she does my type next, leave it in the comments below and maybe I'll pick your type next. But let's go ahead and get started in today's video, the subtypes of the type 4. Okay, so like I said, we're on the type 4. That's where we're gonna be camping today. In the type 4, we are gonna be learning about the subtypes of the type 4. And what are subtypes? So one of the 3 is dominant. It's the one you most use. It's the one that you learned as a child to mostly rely on for survival. The second one, we use a lot, but it's not dominant. It's not our first instinct. And then that third instinct is usually our blind spot, and we don't really use that at all or know it's there. So why is knowing your dominant instinct so important? Because knowing your dominant instinct helps you understand why things trigger you, why things make you feel good, why things are important to you, why things bother you, like all those things, that's your dominant instinct. And so that's why it's important to learn about them. And another good reason to learn about instincts is your relationships will go so much smoother and so much better if you learn not only your own instinct, but the instinct of the other person that you're in relationship with. Okay, so I have a great example for you guys. Let's say you have a self-preservation husband that is building him and his wife's dream backyard. This project takes all his time and all his energy for weeks. All his evenings and weekends are spent working on it. And his wife, who has her first instinct of sexual instinct or one-to-one, is starting to feel lonely and resentful as he's working in the backyard for their dream backyard. She's thinking he never has time for her anymore. He doesn't care. You know, he's not invested in their relationship. She's just feeling really lonely and resentful. And so one day she decides to tell him, and she tells him that, she tells him that she feels lonely, and she's like, you're always working on the project in the backyard and you have no time for me and stuff like that, right? And the husband, the self-preservation husband, is like shocked. Why? Because he thinks he's doing this all for her so that they can enjoy time together in the backyard. As an SP or self-preservation, he thinks he is showing his love by doing this for her. And as an SX sexual, she sees it totally different. And this just goes to show that even with the best intentions, a subtype can play a huge role in understanding each other and in relationships. And knowing each other's subtypes will help you with better communication, more grace, more understanding. Had she known that in his heart that he was doing this for her so that they could be together more, probably would have felt a little better about the situation and understood a little more. But to her, her instinct is not that. And so she's seen it totally different. So bottom line, it's important for you guys to learn each other's first instincts. And maybe it's not a spouse, but it's a friend or your mom and dad or your brother and sister or anyone in your life, right? I would think less conflict will happen if we know each other's first instincts and we can respect that we are showing up differently, we are seeing things differently, and we have different instincts. Bottom line is it's important for you guys to learn your first instincts, which would be called your subtype, right? And so we have your type 4, and you're either going to be, your first instinct is either going to be an SP, an SO, or an SX, and that's what I'm going to teach you today. And I also want to say, not only is it important for you to learn that first instinct, but let's learn about the other 2 also, because we need to bring all 3 into balance. Using all 3 is important. It's, the self-preservation, the social, and the sexual or one-to-one. Knowing about all 3, not having a blind spot, being able to use all 3 instincts is really important. Okay, so what are the subtypes? So the first one is self-preservation, and this instinct focuses on their well-being, their physical safety, material security and comfort, focuses on avoiding danger, and if they have enough resources. And so that's what that self-preservation first instinct is. The second instinct is called the social. This instinct helps us to be aware of other people. Community is important. They will want to have a positive impact on other people, very group focused and aware of how their actions affect others. And then the third instinct is called the sexual instinct, but that's also called the one-to-one instinct. This instinct is really aware of the chemistry between themselves and other people. They focus on the quality and the status of the relationships in their life, friendships, family, anything. Their big focus is on quality relationships and the intimacy between them and another person. They're very one-on-one. That one-on-one piece is what this instinct will have them focus on. So those are the three basic instincts, but let's go ahead and dive deeper into what are the type 4's instincts. And as you're listening to the 4's instincts, be thinking, which one of these instincts is my dominant instinct, my first instinct? And once you know that, that is what's called your subtype. And on a quick side note, if you found yourself watching this video and you're like, well, yeah, I definitely want to learn about subtypes, but I don't even know what the type 4 is, or the type 4 was in my top 3, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about what the basic core values and desires and fears and all of that of the 4 is. I will link 1 or 2 videos down below in the description box for you to go ahead and click on and watch and get educated on who the type 4 is. Okay, so let's start with the self-preservation 4. And the letters for self-preservation are SP. This is the counter type, and every type has a counter type. What that means is it doesn't fit the stereotype of the type. So it doesn't look like what you would think a type 4 would look like. And so the self-preservation 4, they are the long-suffering subtype. They can feel and express happy more than they would express sadness or melancholy. They appear less emotionally expressive. They don't share their inner pain as much as the other 2 4s would, the social and the sexual 4. This subtype wants to be recognized as tough and not complaining. They demand a lot from themselves, but I will say they are really sensitive. Okay, and you might have already heard before the name Sunny 4. That's what this counter type is. That's what this subtype is. They are called the Sunny 4. They are more cheerful than the other 2 4s. They just appear more sunny and lighthearted. And this subtype can mistype as the type 1 and the type 7. And I have seen this happen quite a few times where the 4 thinks they're a 7 or the 7 thinks they're a 4. They definitely have common things, this subtype 4. This subtype tends to be more empathetic and have a more nurturing disposition. They will protest for the sake of others and are sensitive to the needy. And so that's the self-preservation 4. Okay, so let's move on to the social 4. This is the most sensitive type 4. They tend to suffer more and feel more shame. Melancholy may bring them a sense of comfort. So the social 4s, they do desire to be part of a social group, but they don't compete with others as much as they compare themselves to others, and usually they will find themselves lacking in a group setting. In public, social 4s will repress anger, like feelings of anger, feelings of dislike and stuff like that. They'll repress it and they'll appear just sweet and friendly, but once they're in a safe place, they will let out what they were holding in to the people that they trust. And the last thing for the social 4s, they can seek attention through lamenting and suffering. So, all right, let's move on to the last subtype, which is called the sexual subtype, or the one-to-one. Okay, so this subtype is more assertive and angrier than the other 2 subtypes. They are deeply connected to their own suffering. They like and they need emotional intensity. Without intensity, things can seem boring and mundane to this subtype. This subtype prefers fewer closer friends than a whole bunch of friends that don't really know them or care or are a little more shallow, because they can engage with people deeply, authentically, and passionately. That's who they are, and so they definitely want that from their friendships. And this subtype is just a super accepting subtype. They let other people be who they are, and to be the individual that they are. They're really accepting of other people. They also can long for a soulmate, someone to come and just sweep them off their feet. And this subtype can unconsciously try and rid themselves of shame and painful feelings, and instead make other people suffer. And the last thing for this one is a sexual 4 is most likely to be mistyped as a 8 or a sexual 2. Interesting, right? Okay, so that wraps up today's video on the subtypes of the type 4. I hope you were able to figure out, like, what is your dominant subtype? Is it self-preservation? Is it social? Is it the one-to-one or sexual subtype? Which one of those 3 felt most dominant to you? And then which one you were like, yeah, I do use that a little bit and I can definitely relate to that one. And then which one was your blind spot where you're like, nope, can't relate to that one at all. So for example, if you felt like you really related to the social first and then the self-preservation second, you would be a type 4 SO/SP. And so when you see people write stuff like that or type stuff like that, that's what it means. And so I just thought it was super important to teach you what that meant. And let me know in the comments below, which one did you most relate to? Which one stood out to you? Which one were you like, yeah, that really helps me like understand myself even better. So anyways, that's all I have for today, guys. If you find yourself still confused at the end of this, and you're like, well, I think I'm a 4, but man, you said the sexual one could be an 8 or a 2, and that kind of resonates with me, or the 1 and 7, like the self-preservation or anything like that. I have a Discover You typing session. It's a 1-hour session with me over Zoom or FaceTime or whatever you choose. And we get to the nitty-gritty. We figure out your core type, your wings, and usually your subtype. So I will link that down below if you want more information about that. And don't forget to subscribe, guys. It's super important to my channel. I appreciate every single person that pushes that subscribe button. So, and if you want to follow me on social media, I have 2 Instagram accounts. The first one is like my personal one, and that's Hillary_McCaskey_coaching. And my second one is just an Enneagram account, and that is called Enneagram and Coaching. And I've linked those down below if you want to find them. So, but that's all I have today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, bye guys.